my name is Danny, and in this video, we're going to be talking about the absolute basics of music theory that you need to know to be an effective worship platform musician. Music theory is basically the understanding of how music theory works. Music theory can dive into very deep and complex areas that those areas can lead into different rabbit trails, which people have their own interpretation of depending on their background and the way they play. But we're not going to dive into all that. We're not going to get into modal harmony or secondary dominant modulation, which all those things are amazing, and I love studying those things. But we're going to only cover the things that you need to know to understand how to speak the language of keys so that you can speak the language of numbers and understand basic diatonic harmony, building chords, major scales, all those different things. So over the course of the next few videos, we're going to be going over the music theory that you need to understand to be an effective worship platform musician. Here are the preliminary basics that we need to go over. The first is the musical alphabet. We use 7 letters for the 7 tones: A, B, C, D, E, F, and G. So after G comes A again. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's our musical alphabet. The second thing we need to talk about is the difference between half steps and whole steps. These are the smallest movements we have in music between one note to the next note. A half step is going to be the nearest note above or below the note that you're on. Let's take a look at it. Here's C. If I want to go a half step above, I'm going to go to the nearest black key to the right. We would call this C sharp or D flat. If I want to go a half step below C, I need to go to the nearest note to the left. B is the nearest note below. Let's take a look at another note. Here's G. A half step above would be here. A half step below would be here. A whole step is just 2 half steps. Here's middle C. A whole step would be the next Y key to the right, D. It's 2 half steps. Here's F. A whole step above F would be G. A half step above F would be F sharp. Let's take a look at this on a guitar. If I play a G on the bottom string, a half a step would just be 1 fret above that note. A whole step would be 2 frets above. The third thing is understanding what a sharp is and what a flat is. Sharps and flats are basically moving notes either up a half step or down a half step. A sharp is moving up a half step, and a flat is moving down a half step. If I want to sharp a C, I'm going to move it to the right up a half step. There's C sharp. C sharp is also D flat. We call this an enharmonic. Let's look at that on a fret. Here's G, G sharp, here's G again, and G flat. Before we dive into our fourth topic, I want to tell you about the word diatonic. I'll be using this word a lot in reference to the relationships of notes. The word diatonic simply means belonging to. So when I refer to the key of C or the key of G, we talk about notes that belong to the key of C or notes that belong to the key of G. The fourth topic we're going to be talking about is the major scale. Now, the major scale is what we based most of everything we're going to be talking about. In order to build a major scale, what you guys all know is do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. We need a series of whole steps and half steps. We call this the major scale formula. The major scale formula is as follows: whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. I'll say that again. Whole, half, whole, half. When I apply that formula to any given note, we'll take C for example, and I go up a whole step, I have my second degree of the scale. My third degree of the scale comes after another whole step. The fourth degree of the scale comes after a half step. The 5th degree of the scale comes after a whole step. The 6th degree of the scale comes after a whole step. The 7th degree of the scale comes after another whole step. And that leads a half step back to our original note. Whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Because of this major scale, the following notes are diatonic to the key of C. C, D, E, F, G, A, and B. Back to C. So there are 7 notes within each major scale. Every single key, which there's 12 keys in all, there are 7 notes to each major scale. And when you apply the major scale formula to any given note, you're going to have the same sound, just in different keys. We will be using this sound to create the harmonies that we need to go further into the theory that we'll be talking about. And those are the preliminary basics that you need to understand before we continue to dive in.